Welcome, curious explorers, to the Deep Dive. Today we are strapping in for, well, a truly maximalist journey.
That's putting it mildly.
If you've ever felt like the world's ancient mythologies, hidden systems, and digital politics aren't just overlapping.
But actually fused together.
Exactly, fused into one singular, chaotic, yet maybe meticulously structured tapestry, then I think you're ready. Ready to enter the labyrinthine mind of the Chronically online algorithm.
Which is the source archive we're tackling today.
Right.
And we should be clear, we're diving into an online archive that functions less like a simple blog.
It's more complex.
Oh, yeah. Much more. Think of it as a living digital scrapbook, or the creator calls it a kinetic library, I believe.
A kinetic library, I like that.
And the title, The Chronically Online Algorithm, it's actually perfect. It reflects the content, which seems driven by this foundational curiosity about hidden systems.
Hidden systems everywhere.
Pretty much. This curiosity gets applied across, well, the entire spectrum of human knowledge. You've got Hermeticism, Gnosticism, ancient texts.
The really old stuff.
Right. But then it jumps straight to the cutting edge of AI, the singularity geopolitical conspiracy.
Wow. So it connects the ancient and the future.
That's the core idea. They treat everything as evidence, whether it's a serious analysis by a journalist or just some obscure meme about a celebrity.
A meme, really?
Yeah, it's all considered a data point, something worth a kind of forensic examination. They even have a name for their method.
Which is?
The INTERESTORNADO.
Okay, INTERESTORNADO.
That sounds
That sounds intense.
And the metaphor is crucial, I think. It implies chaos on the surface, right? But there's a powerful, organized vortex pulling things together at the core.
Makes sense. So what's this vortex cover?
It covers three massive overlapping pillars that seem to structure their whole worldview. First, esotericism and spirituality.
Okay.
Second, technology and futurism. That's where you get the AI, simulation theory, transhumanism, all that.
The sci-fi stuff almost.
Kind of, yeah. And third, critically, conspiracy and truth movements.
Okay. That's where the politics comes in.
Definitely. And the author's aim, it seems, is always synthesis, connecting these really disparate fields to try and understand the underlying mechanics of power, of control.
They want to know the why behind the what.
Exactly. Not just what happened, but like which script was being followed when it happened.
That's a staggering amount of material to cover,
Right.
which is why our mission today is pretty critical, right?
Absolutely. We need to synthesize this highly eclectic collection, this INTERESTORNADO, into something coherent to grasp the chronically online algorithm worldview.
So we're breaking this deep dive into three main territories today. Is that right?
Three high-concept territories. First, we explore memory and transformation, using the story of a sunken kingdom of secrets.
Intriguing. Then
Then we tackle something really radical, a cosmological revision of the Great Flood narrative.
revision how?
As a deliberate elimination event designed, they argue, to replace humanity entirely.
Whoa. Okay. And the third part.
Finally, we explore how these ancient esoteric conflicts allegedly manifest today in modern politics through meticulously executed ritual acts and large-scale digital psychological warfare.
Ancient secrets, flood myths, modern politics, and digital psyops. Got it. Okay, let's unpack this. Where do we start? A narrative hook, you said?
Yes, one that perfectly captures this theme of transformation. We begin with the tale of the Carnival of Forgotten Dreams.
Forgotten dreams. Okay.
It's a place supposedly swallowed by the sea beneath the cliffs of Crescent Bay. And the sources, they really emphasize this isn't just a spooky ghost story.
No. What is it then?
It's presented more as a parable about how secrets, how maybe powerful energies are preserved, not destroyed, by cataclysm, water as a medium of transformation, not just erasure.
Okay, preserved by water, like messages in a bottle, but bigger.
Much bigger. And the physical description of this sunken carnival they provide is, well, it's quite breathtaking. It's not just wreckage down there.
It's something else.
It's depicted as a living, transformed world. If you were standing up on those windy cliffs, you'd apparently have no idea what's 60 feet below.
So you have to dive down to see it.
You do. And the descriptions are vivid. You descend past these huge kelp forests, schools of silverfish, and then you enter this world of impossible silence, almost reverent.
Sounds eerie.
The water is often described as crystal clear, preserving the scene like it's under glass. And the first thing you see, apparently, is the Ferris wheel.
Still standing.
Silent, rested, yeah. But its spokes are covered in barnacles, bright sponges, and it rotates just slightly in the deep current, like a massive silent guard at the gate of this lost kingdom.
Wow. It's quite an image. What else is down there?
The atmosphere is key. It's steeped in melancholy, sure, but also this strange, persistent joy, like the energy of the place is still echoing.
Joy from a ruin.
That's the paradox. The carousel horses, for instance, they're tipped over, but their painted eyes are described as still wide open in this kind of outrageous, preserved delight. They're getting entwined with coral now, the wood slowly fossilizing, and the big top tent. That's maybe the most dramatic feature.
How so?
It sags under the weight of anemones and silt. It looks like a giant sleeping whale, apparently, dominating the center.
And things like rides, roller coasters.
The roller coaster tracks are there, yeah, but they just terminate, mid-air almost, in nothingness. As if the ride just stopped mid-scream, the power cut instantly.
Chilly.
And everywhere, the sources claim, you get these ghosts of music, drifting through the sound of your own breathing, the diver's bubbles, and the whisper of fish swimming past.
It sounds incredibly atmospheric, but you mentioned a central figure.
Yes. The true heart of this silent spectacle, the element carrying the most symbolic weight, is the clown.
Of course it's a clown. Why is it always a clown?
Right. It looms at the absolute center of the ruins, often described as having this unsettling, perpetual grin fixed on its face.
Okay, creepy factor just went way up.
And nature's taken over. Sea urchins are nesting in its huge hollow ears. Little crabs scuttle through its jawline. It's become part of the ecosystem.
So how did this carnival end up underwater? What's the story?
The local legend, which the archive uses, is that Carnival Felix just vanished about 40 years ago during a sudden, really violent storm.
A storm.
But sailors at the time believed it wasn't natural. They thought it was like a coordinated strike, something targeted.
More than just bad weather.
That's the implication. And the source material follows the journey of a specific diver, Emily. She's presented as a student of secrets.
Why is she diving there?
She's driven by a deep family secret. Apparently, her grandmother ran away to join that very carnival.
Ran away. With who?
With a charismatic man associated with the carnival.
Yeah.
And the description of him is very specific, very symbolic. He supposedly split his face into two. One for laughter, one for grief.
One for laughter, one for grief. That sounds familiar. Like masks.
Or something deeper. That imagery, the divided face, it resonates strongly with Gnostic ideas, doesn't it? The dichotomy of the demiurge, the fractured creator god.
Ah, okay. So her personal quest has these esoteric undertones from the start.
Exactly. And her journey, which starts with fear and maybe trying to understand her family history, it transforms. It becomes one of awe and eventually a kind of acceptance.
Acceptance of what? The loss.
Acceptance of the transformation. The archive is really clear on this point. The ocean isn't the carnival's grave. It's its stage.
The stage.
Yes. It's transformed by the water, not lost. This shifts the whole energy of the disaster, right? From simple tragedy to enduring mystery.
And that implies
What?
that the forces behind it, maybe spiritual forces, weren't eliminated.
Precisely. Just inverted or relocated.
Yeah.
Hidden beneath the surface.
Okay, I think I see the connection you mentioned earlier. But you said it gets unsettling for Emily.
It does. The deeper she dives, the stranger it gets. She actually enters the clown's palace.
Through its mouth. Please don't say through its mouth.
Through its gaping, barnacle-rimmed mouth, yes.
Oh, lovely. What's inside?
An underwater amphitheater. And it's here that the line between her being the seeker, the observer, and becoming part of the spectacle, it just dissolves.
How? What happens?
She hears it first, this faint, tinny melody, a calliope, like a circus organ.
Underwater. No way.
Impossibly present, impossibly loud in the deep silence. Maybe it's an auditory hallucination, nitrogen narcosis, whatever. But it's deeply integrated into the narrative as real within that space.
Okay, so she hears music. Then what?
Then she sees figures, spectral carnival goers assembling in the broken seats of the amphitheater.
Ghosts.
They're described that way, wearing wide hats, wild costumes from another era, and their eyes glow this intense, otherworldly red in the beam of her diving light.
Great eyes. Okay, definitely not friendly ghosts.
And then the clown's voice echoes, not just in the water, they say, but inside her head.
What does it say?
It's described as rough as gravel, but also soft as velvet somehow, and it says, "Welcome, seeker. The show is about to begin."
Nope. Time to surface. Immediately.
But she doesn't. This is framed as the moment of initiation. She picks up a discarded mask lying on the seabed. The moment she does, the moment of participation, the water seems to shimmer, the ruins become vibrant, alive with light and color. She hears applause, real music now.
Whoa.
And the clown's voice returns, gentler this time. And it delivers the core theme of this section. Every seeker is a performer. Every performer becomes the show.
So by engaging, she becomes part of it.
Exactly. She realizes that every dive makes her part of the carnival. The boundary between seeker and spectacle is lost forever beneath the surface.
That's a powerful metaphor, actually, for engaging with hidden knowledge, maybe?
That's precisely how the archive uses it. You start as an observer looking into these hidden systems, these esoteric ideas, but the moment you really engage, pick up the mask, you become a participant in the ritual, whether you intended to or not.
Okay, so a cataclysm doesn't erase, it transforms into a realm of secrets.
Yes. And that concept is the perfect bridge to our next section. Because if a local, man-made place like a carnival can be inverted by water into this kingdom of enduring, maybe sinister secrets.
What does that say about the ultimate water cataclysm, the Great Flood?
Exactly. We're moving from a contained local myth of transformation to the foundational global myth. What if it wasn't about cleansing either?
A powerful connection indeed. Let's dive into that.
All right, so we're pivoting now to what might be the source material's most radical claim. It's an alternative cosmological reading of the Noah story.
Alternative how? This isn't the Sunday school version, I take it.
Definitely not. This reading is synthesized from some pretty deep esoteric sources. They pull from fragments of the Dead Sea Scroll, specifically the Lamech Scroll,
Okay, I've heard of that.
sections of the Book of Enoch, which is non-canonical for most, and also ancient midrashic tales from Jewish tradition.
So, pulling from the fringes, the hidden texts, what's the core premise they build?
It's a complete inversion of the traditional biblical narrative. Forget the idea of the flood as a cleansing or a rescue mission for the righteous.
Okay, so what was it, according to this view?
It was a deliberate replacement, an elimination event for the entire Adamic human line, which they argue had failed its purpose.
Failed how? What was the failure?
The corruption mentioned in Genesis 6.12, that all flesh had corrupted their way upon the earth. In this interpretation, that corruption wasn't just sinfulness, it was a fundamental genetic and spiritual degradation, so absolute that the divine mandate wasn't to fix it, but to terminate the whole Adamic project.
Terminating.
And install a new lineage, a hybrid human-angelic line, basically, with Noah as the designated seed, the template for this new race.
Wow, okay, hold on. If that's true, that means the very nature of humanity fundamentally changed after the flood. We're not the same model as Adam.
That is precisely the assertion. We are the descendants of the replacement line, not the original Adamic line.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting then. How do they support this?
Mhm.
Noah as an angelic replacement.
The sources argue the key evidence comes from those non-canonical texts, especially the Lamech scroll. This was found among the Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran, remember?
Right, and it talks about Noah's birth.
It does, and it offers these non-canonical, frankly terrifying details. We usually picture Noah as this righteous, maybe weathered, but fully human patriarch. Genetically pure, even.
Yeah, it's the standard picture.
But the Lamech scroll completely flips this. It describes Lamech, Noah's own father, being utterly convinced that his wife, Batanosh, hadn't conceived the child with him.
But
With a celestial entity, a guardian of the sky or one of the sons of heaven.
why would he think that? What was different about baby Noah?
The description is, well, alien. The newborn's body was white as snow and red as the blooming of a rose. His hair was white as wool, like an old man's, but on an infant.
Okay, strange, but maybe explainable as, I don't know, albinism or something.
You could try. But these details are cited as just the beginning of the angelic signature. The real clincher for Lamech, the part that terrified him, was the eyes.
What about the eyes?
The text says Noah's eyes lighted up the whole house like the sun.
Lighted up the house.
Yeah.
Like glowing.
Exactly. They weren't just reflecting light, they were generating it. Radiating this intense divine or supernatural power. Lamech's reaction is pure terror.
I can imagine.
He basically concludes, this kid looks like the sons of the God of heaven. He's not from me, he's from the angels.
Wow. So his own father rejected him as non-human.
Initially, yes. It apparently took Enoch intervening. Methuselah asks Enoch for clarity to confirm that, yes, this was different, but it was divinely sanctioned. Noah was part of a plan.
A divine engineering project, essentially.
That's the language the sources use, the creation of a replacement seed for humanity.
So how does this reframe Genesis 6.9, where Noah's called perfect in his generations?
Well, if you accept the Lamech scroll reading, the traditional interpretation that perfect means genetically pure Adamic human gets thrown out the window.
So what's the alternative reading?
The alternative reading, championed by the Chronically Online Algorithm Archive, is that perfect means perfectly angelic or hybrid in his genetic makeup. He was specifically engineered to be the template for a new, post-human lineage.
Engineered to survive the flood and restart everything.
Exactly. Capable of surviving the transition and stewarding the new world. This also reframes the whole Sons of God story, the Watchers breeding with humans.
Oh.
In this view, the Watchers weren't punished just for breeding because God then does his own breeding program with Noah's line. They were punished primarily for teaching forbidden knowledge. The original sin was tampering with the Adamic line, yes, but the divine solution was creating a superior, controlled hybrid line through Noah.
Okay, that's a huge shift in perspective.
Yeah.
Did this replacement race show immediate differences besides glowing eyes at birth?
The sources point to a couple of things. The obvious one is longevity,
Right, Noah lived 950 years.
which they argue suggests capabilities far beyond normal human genetics, may be necessary for the huge task of repopulating the Earth.
Makes sense. What else?
The more disturbing evidence, they claim, is the new mandate given to Noah and his descendants after the flood. In Genesis 9.2.
The fear and dread mandate.
Exactly. God tells them, "The fear and dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth and upon every fowl of the air."
How's that different from Adam's role?
It represents a profound shift. Adam's dominion in Eden is usually interpreted as cooperative, right? He named the animals, suggesting a relationship based on understanding, stewardship, maybe even harmony.
Okay.
This new mandate implies ruling through terror and submission. It suggests there's something inherently alien or overpowering in these post-flood humans that makes animals instinctively fear them.
Like a supernatural authority built into their DNA.
That's the idea. The new engineered humanity rules through divine fear, fundamentally different from the original Adamic lineage they replaced.
Okay, so if the flood was meant to eliminate the corrupted Adamic line and the Nephilim giants, what about the original source of the Nephilim? The human women who mated with the Watcher angels.
Right, the mothers of the giants. If they just drowned like everyone else, their specific influence, their connection to that forbidden union, would be purged. Did they survive somehow?
That's the question. Did they?
According to these esoteric sources, specifically citing Enoch 19.2 in the Greek tradition, they did not simply perish. Their punishment was unique and perfectly calibrated to their transgression.
Calibrated how? What happened to them?
They were transformed into sirens.
Sirens, like the creatures from Greek mythology.
Yeah.
Ones who sing sailors onto the rocks.
Exactly like those. Predatory, alluring, deadly water spirits. The curse ensured their survival, but in this monstrous, eternally bound state.
Wow. So they sinned by being seduced by a supernatural being.
Predators, yes.
And now their punishment is to become eternal seducers themselves, bound to the water that destroyed their offspring.
Precisely. The water becomes both their domain and their chilling, eternal prison. It's a perfect, terrifying symmetry.
But wait a minute. If the whole point of the flood was to cleanse the earth of corruption, doesn't turning these corrupted women into powerful, immortal, predatory spirits kind of defeat the purpose? Aren't you just preserving the problem in a different form?
That is the absolute critical question the source material tackles, and the answer they propose is key to understanding their whole worldview.
Okay, what's the key?
Knowledge preservation. Remember, these women didn't just carry the Watchers' children, they were the recipients, the students of the forbidden knowledge the Watchers taught them.
Magic, divination, astrology, all that stuff from Enoch.
Metallurgy, spellcraft, herbology, yes, all of it. By transforming them into immortal sirens, the theory goes, these entities became living repositories of this occult power.
So the knowledge survived, even if the giants drowned.
Exactly. It ensured that the forbidden wisdom persisted in the post-flood world, constantly lurking beneath the surface, always seeking ways to influence or infect the new human race.
So the ancient war wasn't erased by the flood at all.
It was just submerged, literally, driven underwater.
And this explains why the siren archetype is found everywhere.
That's the argument. The sources explicitly link this origin story to powerful, deadly female water spirits in folklore across the globe. You've got the Slavic Rusalka, who lure men into rivers to drown them.
Okay.
The Mary Morgan of Breton lore in France, similar seductive, dangerous water fae. Even elements of the more sanitized mermaid myth are traced back to this cursed origin.
So the persistence of these global myths is presented as, like, cultural proof.
Yeah.
Echoes of this real cursed transformation.
Yes, proof of the enduring power of this transformed occult feminine energy. The old corruption just morphed into a new kind of supernatural ecology, always lurking just beneath the surface, much like,
A carnivally forgotten dream.
Exactly. It all ties back together.
Okay, this model of the flood as a systematic replacement is compelling in its own way, but there's a big problem, isn't there? Og, king of Bashan.
Ah, Og. Yes. The giant who survived. He's the ultimate anomaly, the exception that seems to break the rule of total elimination.
If the flood wiped out all the Nephilim and their kind, how did this massive giant make it through? He definitely wasn't on the Ark's manifest.
He's presented as the living relic, isn't he? A physical bridge between the pre-flood and post-flood worlds. His survival absolutely challenges the simple cleansing narrative, and the Midrashic traditions offer these incredible, almost fantastical accounts of how he managed it.
Fantastical how? Let's hear them. How does a giant survive a world-drowning flood?
Well, the most famous account suggests he didn't get inside the Ark, he clung to the outside.
Clung to the outside? For the whole flood? How?
Apparently, after swearing eternal loyalty and servitude to Noah, he was allowed to hang on. Given the Ark's massive size, maybe he could maintain a grip, and Noah would supposedly pass him food through a hole cut in the hull.
Okay, that requires superhuman endurance.
Yeah.
Or just being incredibly huge.
And he was incredibly huge. Remember, Deuteronomy 3.11 mentions his bed, an iron bedstead, 9 cubits long.
9 cubits. How long is that?
About 13.5 feet, which implies Og himself might have been, well, enormous, 12, maybe 13 feet tall, or even more.
That big. Wow.
Which leads to the second survival theory, based purely on his size. Some traditions suggest he was so immensely tall that the floodwaters, even as they rose to cover mountains, only came up to his ankles.
He just waded through the flood for over a year.
Seems unlikely, right? Especially considering another detail often mentioned in these texts.
Which is?
That the floodwaters weren't just deep, they were boiling hot, sent scalding from the earth to dissolve the wicked.
Boiling water. Okay, so how could he survive that? Clinging to the ark or wading? He'd be cooked.
This is where it gets really weird, and suggests Og's survival wasn't just luck or an oversight. This is where the idea of divine allowance comes in.
God let him survive. Why?
The sources note a miraculous detail. While the floodwaters were boiling everywhere else, the rain falling directly onto Og was miraculously cool. It didn't scald him.
So divine intervention protected him. That implies his survival served a purpose.
The purpose, yes, but maybe not a benevolent one. It suggests his continued existence, at least initially, was part of the plan. Perhaps to serve as a living threat, a remnant of the old corrupted world that could test or tempt the new humanity.
So he wasn't an anomaly that slipped through the cracks. He was a necessary, surviving contamination, allowed to persist.
That's the chilling interpretation the archive presents. He survived to be this lurker, this predatory giant, casting a long shadow for centuries.
And his later interactions support this malevolent purpose idea.
They do, even when he does something seemingly helpful, like warning Abraham that his nephew Lot has been captured.
Yeah.
Rabbinic tradition claims his real motive was malicious. He secretly hoped Abraham would rush off to rescue Lot, get killed in the process, and then Og could seize Abraham's wife Sarah.
Wow. So even his good deeds were twisted, always a threat to the new lineage.
A perpetual, subtle threat. Right up until his final confrontation with Moses, centuries later, when the Israelites are entering the Promised Land.
And that confrontation itself was legendary, wasn't it?
Absolutely. It confirms he was no ordinary enemy. The story describes Og attempting to end the battle by literally ripping up a mountain.
Ripping up a mountain?
A mountain said to be 3 parasangs wide, that's miles, to drop it on the entire Israelite camp.
Okay, that's definitely pre-flood power levels. How did Moses stop that?
It required direct, high-level divine intervention. God supposedly sent a swarm of ants, or a worm in some versions, to rapidly tunnel through the base of the mountain Og was holding above his head.
Ants tunneled the mountain,
causing it to collapse not onto the Israelites, but down onto Og's own neck, trapping him like a yoke.
Incredible. Only then could Moses fight him.
Only then could Moses, who himself was said to be 10 cubits tall and wielding a 10-cubit axe, leap up and manage to strike Og's ankle, finally killing him. Og's defeat was hugely symbolic. The ultimate, final elimination of the physical giants of the old world.
The last relic destroyed. But his survival and the fact that giants reappear later, that still leaves a huge question mark over the total elimination idea, doesn't it?
It brings us to the ultimate paradox of the flood narrative, according to this archive.
Right.
If the flood was a complete wipe, a genetic reset button, why did giants reappear centuries later? You've got the Anakim and Canaan, the Rephaim, Goliath, and his brothers. Where did they come from?
If Og was the last physical giant, then the genetics must have survived some other way. How?
This is where the source material proposes its most controversial, perhaps internal mechanism. The contamination wasn't just clinging to the outside of the ark, it was carried aboard.
Aboard the ark.
Yeah.
How? By whom? Noah's family were the only survivors.
The suspicion within these esoteric traditions the archive draws on falls heavily on one person, Ham's wife.
Ham's wife. Why her?
Some traditions identify her as Nama, and Nama is sometimes linked to the lineage of Cain, specifically through Lamech, a different Lamech than Noah's father, and his wives Ada and Zillah. This line of Cain was already deeply associated with the forbidden knowledge taught by the Watchers, remember? Metallurgy, music, potentially magic.
Okay, so she comes from a tainted lineage, symbolically. But how does that translate to giant genes?
The critical theory posits that she carried dormant Nephilim genetics onto the ark.
Dormant genetics.
Yeah.
Like recessive genes. She wasn't a giant herself.
Exactly. The sources frame this using concepts we might translate today as sleeping genes or recessive traits. Think of it like carrying the gene for blue eyes when you have brown eyes yourself. She wasn't physically a giant, but she carried the genetic potential for gigantism within her DNA.
So the contamination wasn't obvious. It was smuggled aboard biologically. A genetic Trojan horse.
That's a perfect way to put it. It ensured the persistence of these powerful, potentially disruptive bloodlines hidden within the supposedly pure post-flood population.
Which means maybe allowing a carrier on board wasn't an oversight at all.
That's the stunning implication. Maybe it was a deliberate feature of the divine plan, not to create a purely good world, but a complex, hybrid post-flood reality where the conflict would inevitably continue, just in new form.
Wow. And this theory, does it explain anything else in the Genesis narrative?
It does, crucially. According to the archive, it provides a compelling explanation for that really bizarre incident after the flood, where Noah gets drunk, Ham sees his nakedness.
Right, and then Noah wakes up and curses not Ham, but Ham's son, Canaan. That always seemed weird. Why curse the grandson?
This theory suggests Noah, being this angelic hybrid patriarch with maybe heightened perception or prophetic insight, recognized the reemergence of the dormant Nephilim traits manifesting in his grandson Canaan's line. Maybe unusual size or strength or a rebellious temperament, the signature of the old giant's resurfacing.
So the curse wasn't just about disrespect. It was Noah prophetically identifying and trying to contain this resurfacing genetic threat.
Exactly. The curse was directed specifically at that contaminated bloodline, perhaps to limit its power or prevent its dominance over the other lineages. It was damage control for the genetic time bomb that had made it onto the ark.
And is there genealogical proof offered for this? Does Ham's line actually produce giants later on?
This is where the archive claims the textual evidence becomes chillingly direct. If you trace Ham's descendants in the Bible, you find a striking concentration of gigantism and unusual power. Canaan's descendants included the Anakim, the giants, who terrified the Israelite spies in Canaan. Numbers 13.33 explicitly says the Anakim come from the Nephilim. It draws a direct line back.
Wow, okay. That's pretty explicit.
Then another son of Ham, Mizraim, his line is linked to the Philistines, and who came from the Philistine city of Gath.
Goliath and his giant brothers.
Exactly. And then another son of Ham, Cush, was the father of Nimrod.
Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord, builder of Babel.
Described as a mighty warrior, a figure of immense power and rebellion against the divine order. So you see this undeniable pattern. The Anakim, Goliath, Nimrod, all tracing back to Ham's line.
It really does suggest that the genetic potential for these traits was concentrated there, supporting the idea of a carrier, Ham's wife, on the ark.
That's the case the archive makes. It means the post-flood world wasn't pure. It was instantly a complex mix. You had Noah's angelic baseline, but also this deliberately included Nephilim genetic potential.
Destined for a continuation of the ancient conflict, just fought by a transformed hybrid humanity.
A world transformed, not cleansed. And this worldview, this idea of continuous, shape-shifting conflict between hidden forces operating through bloodlines and secret knowledge, provides the absolute foundation for how the Chronically online algorithm interprets everything else, including modern events.
Okay, that sets the stage perfectly. The ancient war continues. How does it look today? All right, so we're making a big leap now from ancient spiritual conflicts, flood myths, giants, sirens, right into our modern hyperdigital reality.
It's a leap, but the core argument from the source material is that it's not really a leap. The underlying systems, the hidden agendas they claim, are continuous. They just manifest differently.
And how do they manifest today, according to this archive?
Through meticulously planned ritual markers embedded within public political events, and also through large-scale digital psychological operations.
Ritual markers.
Yeah.
Okay, now we really need to stress our position here.
Absolutely critical. We are stepping into highly controversial territory. Our role is strictly impartial reporting. We are relaying the interpretations and claims presented in the source material, the Chronically online algorithm archive. We are not endorsing these views, simply examining them as part of this deep dive into their specific worldview.
Got it. Neutrality is key. So the central thesis is what? That major events aren't random.
Exactly. That nothing significant happens by accident. Specific political events, especially shocking or traumatic ones, are allegedly timed, geographically located, and numerically marked according to esoteric principles.
For what purpose?
Yeah.
To advance some hidden agenda.
Precisely. An agenda the source often refers to as the technocratic Noahide order.
Technocratic Noahide order. What does that mean in their context?
It seems to represent the modern manifestation of what they see as the Old Watchers' agenda, achieving global control, but this time through technology, surveillance, centralized finance, and maybe a universal secularized legal system based loosely on the Noahide laws, but stripped of spiritual context.
Okay, so modern globalism interpreted through an ancient esoteric lens.
Essentially, yes, the new replacement push, but using tech instead of floods.
So where do they claim to see this ritual marking in action? Give us an example from the archive.
One of the most detailed and certainly provocative examples they dissect is the death of the conservative commentator Charlie Kirk.
Okay. How do they interpret that event?
They frame it not as a tragic crime, but as a ritualistic public execution, meticulously marked by Masonic and Kabbalistic numerology and symbolism. The level of symbolic decoding they apply is intense.
A ritual execution. How do they even begin to build that case?
It starts with the name itself, Charles James Kirk. They break it down word by word.
Charles
Yeah.
James Kirk.
Charles, they note, derives from Carl, meaning free man. Kirk, of course, means church. So Charles Kirk symbolically represents the church of the free man, meaning individual sovereignty, the old American ideal of freedom, perhaps linked to constitutionalism or Christian liberty, the old order they see being dismantled.
Okay, Church of the Free Man and the Masonic angle.
That comes immediately. Charles, Freeman, Freemason, Kirk, Church Lodge.
So Charles Kirk becomes Freemasonic Lodge.
That's the direct symbolic interpretation they offer. Therefore, the public slaying of the man bearing this name is read as encoding a message. The old lodge of Neoplatonicic ideals of decentralized freedom is being ritually sacrificed.
Sacrifice for what?
To make way for the new global order. His symbolic blood becomes the cornerstone, they argue, for establishing this technocratic Noahide system. It's a transition marker. And the middle name, James.
Yeah, what about James?
James comes from Jacob, or Yaakov, in Hebrew, which means supplanter, or the one who replaces. This links the entire event in their reading to the concept of replacement, and specifically, they connect it to the rise of Israel or Zion as a central force in this new order.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot baked into just the name. Does this connect to Masonic lore beyond the name?
Oh, heavily. They argue the entire event mirrors the foundational Masonic allegory. The slaying of Hiram Abiff.
The master builder of Solomon's temple, right. Killed by ruffians.
Exactly. Hiram Abiff, the master builder who held the secrets, slain by 3 unworthy craftsmen because he refused to give them up.
Yeah.
In this reading, Kirk, the symbolic free man or Freemasonic Lodge, is cast as the master builder, slain in public for refusing to submit to the demands of the New Order architects.
And are there, like, numbers or details that support this parallel?
They point to several numerical markers they consider crucial. First, the manhunt for the perpetrator lasted exactly 33 hours.
33. That number, it comes up a lot in these contexts, doesn't it?
It does. It's often cited as the highest commonly recognized degree in Scottish Rite Masonry, a number signifying mastery, completion, and often sacrifice. Think Christ's age at crucifixion.
Okay, 33 hours. What else?
The shooter, identified as Tyler Robinson, was 22 years old.
And 22 is significant how?
In various numerological systems, including some Kabbalistic ones, 22 represents the master builder number. It's the number of letters in the Hebrew alphabet, paths on the tree of life, etc., linking the killer directly to the archetype of the craftsman involved in Hiram Abiff's death.
So the age of the killer and the duration of the manhunt are read as Masonic code.
That's the claim. They sometimes synthesize these too, noting 33 plus 22 equals 55. 5 plus 5 equals 10, which can symbolize completion or transition, laying the foundation. 10 equals 1 plus 0 equals 1, the beginning. It gets very layered.
And the specifics of the crime itself. Did they find symbolism there too?
Yes, particularly the fact that Kirk was shot in the neck.
Why is that significant?
They assert this directly mirrors the traditional penalty sign described in the oath of the entered apprentice mason, the first degree. Part of the symbolic penalty involves having the throat cut across.
So the location of the wound is read as a Masonic sign of punishment, delivered by the lodge guard figure.
Punishment for disobedience, or perhaps for failing to protect the secrets of the old order, allowing it to be overthrown. It's interpreted as an execution according to the craft's own symbolic laws.
Okay, this is intricate. What about location and timing? Those are usually key in ritual interpretations.
Absolutely vital in this analysis. The event took place near Zion National Park in Utah.
Zion. That name obviously carries huge symbolic weight.
Immense weight. The archive ties the location directly to what they call the Greater Israel Project and the broader agenda of global governance under the symbolism of Zion, not necessarily just the state of Israel, but Zion as a concept of centralized world power.
So the sacrifice happening near Zion links it to the rise of this new Zionist world order.
That's the connection they draw. The killing of the Church of the Free Man near Zion sends a message, they argue. The old American decentralized vision is finished. It's being ritually replaced by the new global temple, the technocratic order headquartered, symbolically at least, in Zion.
And the timing. When did this happen?
September 10th, the eve of September 11th.
Okay, that date is obviously loaded.
Extremely loaded. 9/11 itself is viewed in these circles as a mega ritual, often linked to the symbolic destruction of the twin pillars of Solomon's temple, Boaz and Jachin, representing the old order.
So doing this on September 10th.
Ritualistically aligns the slaying of the Church of the Free Man with the eve of the destruction of the old temple. It's like the necessary preparatory sacrifice before the main event, clearing the way for the new temple of global technocratic rule to rise from the symbolic rubble. A total overthrow.
They really leave no stone unturned. Is there an astrological component too?
There is, yes. They claim the killing occurred at the exact midpoint of the September eclipse season that year.
The midpoint of an eclipse season. Why is that significant?
This period between two eclipses is sometimes referred to in esoteric circles as the eye of the storm or the eye of the serpent. It's considered a liminal, highly potent time, a portal where cosmic energies are unstable and particularly receptive to intentional, magical, or ritual action.
So like a magical sweet spot for sacrifices.
In ancient mystery traditions, yes, the midpoint of an eclipse cycle was often seen as the prime time for major rituals, especially sacrifices, designed to align human events with the perceived cosmic order, or to harness celestial energy for a specific purpose. The timing, they argue, was chosen to capture maximum celestial juice for this transformative ritual.
Okay, architecture. Did they analyze the location itself?
They did. They claimed that the specific location where Kirk was speaking, when viewed from above, like on a map, allegedly resembled the shape of a giant menorah.
A menorah, the 7-branch candelabrum.
Yes. And in their Kabbalistic mapping onto this shape, Kirk's position at the time corresponded to Kever, the crown, the highest point on the tree of life. But here, interpreted as a false crown, the crown of the old dying order being extinguished at the highest point of the ritual space.
This is incredibly detailed. Finally, what about the killer's name? Tyler Robinson. Did they decode that too?
Of course. Every element is considered significant. Tyler, they point out, is the title of the Masonic Lodge officer who guards the outer door, often with a drawn sword. The Tyler.
The guard, the enforcer, maybe the executioner?
Precisely. An executional role within the lodge structure.
Yeah.
And Robinson.
Son of Robin.
Literally, yes. But they hear an echo. Robbing son. One who robs a fellow brother of his life, or one who betrays the craft. A son who slays a fellow son of the lodge.
Okay. And his middle name. You mentioned Charlie Kirk's middle name. James was important.
Tyler Robinson's middle name was also reportedly James.
James again. Meaning supplanter, linked to Israel Zion.
Yes. So the killer himself carries the symbolic signature of the force that is replacing the old order.
So putting it all together, what's the final alleged message of this decoded ritual?
The synthesized message, according to the archive, is this. The sacrifice of the Church of the Free Man, Charlie Kirk, is being ritually replaced by the Temple of Zion, global technocratic order, with the act being carried out, supplemented by James Israel, under the authority and symbolism of the Masonic craft itself, signaling an internal shift or betrayal within those power structures.
It's a completely different reality overlaid onto a public event. Incredibly dense, layered, and based entirely on the premise that nothing, absolutely nothing, is arbitrary.
That's the core of their methodology. Everything is code. Everything is ritual.
Okay, from a physical, geographically located alleged ritual, let's shift to the digital realm. How does this archive interpret the QAnon phenomenon? Was that seen as part of this hidden war?
Very much so, but not in the way you might think. The sources we're drawing from don't analyze QAnon primarily as a grassroots political movement or even just as disinformation.
No. How then?
They frame it as a highly sophisticated psychological operation, or PSYOP, but with the specific twist. They argue it was rooted in the principles of chaos magic. They call it a escopy, a psychological and chaos magic operation.
Chaos magic, like spells and sigils, but deployed digitally.
Essentially, yes. The core thesis is that QAnon was deliberately designed as a gamified system. Its purpose was to capture and channel legitimate anti-establishment energy, real anger, and frustration,
Okay.
but channel it into a self-sustaining trance of compliance and passivity, using magical techniques disguised as political discourse or research.
A compliance system disguised as rebellion. How would that even work?
The mechanics they describe pull straight from the Chaos Magic playbook. First, the whole thing was structured like an alternate reality game, an ARG.
Like those online puzzle games.
Exactly. It blended esoteric themes, synchromysticism, finding meaningful patterns in random events and numerology. This invited participants into a game of decoding.
Decoding the Q drops.
Yes. And the central element, Q itself, was crucial. They argue Q wasn't a person or a group of insiders. Q was designed as a blank sigil.
A blank sigil. What does that mean?
In chaos magic, a sigil is a symbol created to represent a desired outcome. A blank sigil is even more abstract. It's an empty placeholder. Its very ambiguity, the mystery around Q's identity, allowed millions of people to project their own deepest hopes, fears, and desires onto it.
So Q became whatever people needed it to be.
Precisely. And the cryptic nature of the Q drops mimicked the riddles found in Masonic or Gnostic traditions. The archive argues this effectively initiated followers into a kind of modern Gnostic mystery religion.
With Q as the source of secret knowledge.
Q as the archon, maybe, or the demiurge, doling out obscure clues that only the enlightened followers, the digital bakers, could interpret, and the very act of decoding, of finding pattern.
Yeah, it's a hook.
That was the addiction mechanism, the gamification, successfully decoding a drop, finding a synchronicity, connecting dots that triggered dopamine hits. It created a powerful variable reward schedule, just like gambling, which kept people hooked and constantly engaged.
Okay, so it's an addictive game structure. Where does the magic part come in beyond sigils?
It comes from the collective focus. This intense shared belief, the massive emotional energy poured into Q by millions of followers worldwide. The source material argues this created a powerful egregore.
An egregore. What's that?
It's an occult concept. An egregore is a psychic entity, a collective thought form that is generated by the focused belief and emotion of a group, and over time, it can supposedly achieve a degree of autonomy.
So QAnon, as a movement, generated its own psychic entity.
That's the claim. Sustained by the collective focus and emotional investment of millions, QAnon became, in their terms, a powerful chaos magic servitor.
A servitor, like something created to serve a purpose.
Exactly. A magical entity designed and energized to serve the purpose of its true masters, the architects of the escopy, whoever they might be. It becomes a self-propelling engine of belief.
And the memes, things like where we go one, we go all, were they just slogans?
According to this analysis, no. They function as more than just slogans. They were mantras or even linguistic spells.
Spells? How?
They were constantly repeated, used to reinforce group identity, synchronize the collective consciousness through rhythmic chanting, even digitally, and, most importantly, to suppress critical thinking and dissent.
Suppressed thinking. Can we break that down? How did the specific phrases work as spells of negation, as they call it?
Okay, let's take the big ones. First, trust the plan.
That was central, wasn't it?
Absolutely central. And they argue it was the ultimate pacification spell. By constantly urging followers to surrender their personal judgment, their discernment, their agency to some unseen, undefined, perpetually unfolding plan.
It stopped them from asking questions.
It negated the need for evidence. It negated the need for critical analysis. It negated accountability. If things looked bad or promises weren't met, it wasn't failure, it was just part of the plan you couldn't see yet. It created this self-perpetuating horizon of waiting, rewarding passive faith over action.
Okay, that makes a creepy kind of sense.
Yeah.
What about where we go one, we go all, WWG, 1WGA?
This one enforced conformity, disguised as unity. Any dissent, any disagreement, any questioning of the narrative wasn't just wrong, it was a betrayal of the group, a failure to go with everyone else.
So it shut down internal debate.
Completely. It was a potent spell for negating individuality, replacing it with absolute group obedience and intense peer pressure, a kind of social enforcement mechanism for the magical trance.
And the third big one, the storm is coming.
This created perpetual anticipation by constantly focusing everyone's attention on an imminent future cataclysmic event, the storm, the Great Awakening, the 10 Days of Darkness. It effectively negated the present reality. Any current disappointments, any real-world problems, any lack of progress could be dismissed. Don't worry, the storm will fix everything.
So it directed all energy towards waiting for the future.
Waiting, speculating, decoding. Instead of confronting ongoing realities or mobilizing for tangible action in the here and now, it stifled any real-world opposition because the real battle was always just about to happen, but never quite arrived. Meanwhile, they argue, the real-world plan of the technocrats advanced without interruption.
Wow. Okay, and where does Donald Trump fit into this chaos magic framework?
He was positioned, intentionally, according to the archive, as the messianic figure, the deified leader.
The God Emperor.
That term was used, yes. He was framed not just as a political leader, but as the chosen warrior battling literal cosmic evil, the deep state cabal often depicted in demonic or satanic terms. This tapped into very deep, very powerful archetypes.
The returning king, the savior figure.
Exactly. And the movement engaged in what the source calls a form of theological inversion. Trump's perceived flaws, his anger, his controversial statements, these weren't seen as weaknesses. They were reframed and celebrated as righteous judgment, as holy wrath against the wicked. It was a deliberate perversion of biblical concepts, they argue, designed to justify unwavering allegiance.
So loyalty to Trump became a kind of religious requirement.
That's the endpoint they describe. The ultimate blasphemy, as the source puts it, was the transference of faith. Faith was moved away from traditional religious structures or even from personal discernment and action.
And placed onto
Q, onto the plan. And onto Trump as the indispensable agent of salvation. Your salvation, your hope for the future, became contingent on your absolute allegiance to the movement and its leader figure.
And the ultimate consequence of all this massive escapee.
The ultimate outcome, according to this analysis, was the neutralization of a huge segment of potential opposition. All that anti-establishment energy, all that desire for change, was effectively captured and redirected
Into harmless channels.
into speculation, meme warfare, endless decoding, into waiting. Millions of potential dissenters were rendered operationally paralyzed, their focus completely diverted onto the ARG, while the real-world machinations of the alleged technocratic Noahide order could proceed essentially unopposed.
So the chaos magic was real, but it was used against the followers.
Turned back on them, using their own hopes and beliefs to weave a cage, turning them into a massive self-policing, spiritually charged engine of their own inaction.
It's the ultimate irony, isn't it? Using the language of awakening to induce a deep sleep.
A deep trance, yes, built on the foundation of being expertly taught through those mantras, through the game mechanics, to just trust the plan, ensuring their passivity while the architects of the next replacement continued their work largely unnoticed. Hashtag tag outro.
Okay, wow. This deep dive has really covered some ground. We've gone from a sunken carnival to a radical reinterpretation of the Great Flood and Noah.
As an elimination event, seeding a hybrid race.
Right, through giants and sirens and stowaways on the Ark, all the way to, well, modern political events read as Masonic rituals and QAnon as a vast chaos magic operation.
It's a lot to take in, but the persistent, unsettling through line from the Chronically online algorithm archive is that idea of a world that is always transformed, never truly cleansed. The conflict is continuous.
Whether it's God flooding the world to replace the Adamic line with Noah's angelic hybrid.
Or whether it's sophisticated social engineering and esoteric rituals being deployed today to reshape society and consciousness. The underlying pattern, they argue, is the same: replacement and control.
So the ancient war, the Watchers versus humanity, or maybe Watchers versus the divine plan.
Yeah.
It never actually ended.
It just changed shape. That's the core thesis. It manifests today as these global governance projects, these digital psychological operations. The battleground has shifted partly into the digital realm, into our minds. The conflict is continuous, fought over who controls the narrative, the symbols, the very definition of reality.
So let's quickly recap the main territories we explored. The sunken Carnival Felix, transformed by water into a living kingdom of secrets, showing how cataclysm preserves, not destroys.
Then the chilling alternative reading of the Great Flood. Not a cleansing, but a systematic elimination event. Noah as the engineered angelic agent, Og the giant as the permitted stowaway, and Ham's wife as the crucial carrier of dormant Nephilim DNA, ensuring the conflict continued.
And finally, the modern playbook. The Charlie Kirk event, decoded as a Masonic ritual sacrifice, packed with numerology and symbolism marking a transition of power.
And QAnon analyzed not as politics, but as a chaos magic psyop, using game mechanics, sigils, and linguistic spells like trust the plan to neutralize opposition and induce a state of passive waiting.
Okay, so if this worldview presented by the archive has any validity, even metaphorically,
Yeah.
if the goal is this continuous transformation, this replacement,
Right.
what does this all mean for us right now, living in this hyper-digital age they keep referencing?
Well, the stark implication is that we need to recognize the nature of the battlefield. If this analysis is correct, the fight for sovereignty, for individual consciousness, isn't just happening in elections or protests. It's happening in the realm of mythology, symbolism, and perhaps most critically, in our daily interaction with technology and information.
The archive mentions something specific here, doesn't it? The AI for an eye exchange.
Yes, that phrase comes up. It points to the idea that we are constantly, often unconsciously, trading fundamental human faculties for synthetic algorithmic replacements.
Like what? Give me an example.
Like trading our innate sense of direction and spatial awareness for reliance on the GPS map. Trading deep, sustained focus for the fractured attention demanded by infinite scrolling feeds. Trading genuine human empathy, maybe, for the uncanny, simulated empathy of chatbots or AI companions.
Trading memory for cloud storage.
Trading critical thinking for algorithmic curation. Trading discernment for outsourced fact-checking. Every technological convenience, every mental shortcut offered by the algorithm is potentially viewed within this framework as a subtle exchange. You gain convenience, but you lose a piece of innate human capacity.
An AI for an eye. That's
Yeah.
chilling.
And it leads to the final provocative thought. If the post-flood world, according to this archives reading, was intentionally seeded with a hybrid race mixing angelic potential with dormant Nephilim genes to ensure the eventual replacement or transformation of Adamic humanity,
Yeah.
then we have to ask, what hidden genetic, or maybe mimetic or spiritual element might be deliberately seeded into our modern technocratic Noahide order through this AI for an eye exchange? What are we integrating into ourselves that ensures our next replacement or transformation?
Is the constant interfacing with AI, the merging with the digital,
Hmm.
is that the mechanism for seeding the next fundamental change? Turning our own minds into the carriers, the Ham's wives, of whatever comes next.
Could our increasing reliance on these external synthetic systems be subtly rewriting our own internal code, making us receptive, even dependent, on a future we didn't consciously choose? And perhaps the most profound implication, if the Nephilim genes survived the flood because they were recessive, dormant, waiting for the right conditions to manifest, maybe the human traits we are currently trading away, so readily deep focus, critical discernment, individual agency, spiritual connection, maybe these are the recessive traits of true Adamic freedom. Maybe the system encourages us to let them atrophy, to choose the synthetic over the innate until they are effectively purged from the human experience altogether, replaced by the machine mind.
Leaving us perfectly engineered for the next phase of the plan.
Wow, that's definitely something to mull over.
Indeed. A lot to think about.
Stay curious, everyone. Keep questioning the scripts. And we'll catch you next time for another deep dive into the archives.